Remember, I told you that my goal is to give you two things: strengthen your own faith, and also make you, hopefully help you be more comfortable speaking about your faith to others. I mean, the more you understand that your faith is actually reasonable, makes sense, the better you'll be able to communicate with others. Okay, that's my hope. All right. So we started with scientific evidence for God. My favorite verse, we already looked at this, right? Romans 1:20. It says that people are without excuse. Right? Even if you've never seen a Bible, you can learn a whole lot about God, even invisible characteristics, right? From the things that he has made. All right. Job 38 came to mind this week. And this is kind of a cool thing. You guys know the story of Job at all? Job kind of had a tough time. I won't say kind of. He had a really tough time, right? Job, he lost his family. He lost his, all his sheep. People came off and took his sheep. And then he got boils all over, right? Painful boils. And then he was kind of having a hard time with that. Very much having a hard time with that, right? So when Job was having a hard time, even though he didn't sin, he didn't deny God, he kept his faith, and yet he was still suffering greatly. Right? I think is it the book of James that gives Job as an example of suffering? Okay? So when God shows up, do you guys remember what God said to Job? Anybody remember what God said to Job when Job appears? Anybody remember? It's okay if you don't. Okay. Well, here's what Job was told by God. God started listing off things about creation to Job. Very interesting. So God shows up in Job 38. You don't have to turn there, but this is what God said. Who is this who darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Dress for action like a man, and I will question you, and you will answer me. Listen to this. Verse 4 of Job 38. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determines its measurements? Surely you know. Who stretched the line upon it? Or where were its bases sunk? Who laid its cornerstone? Where did when the morning stars sang together? It goes on and on about nature. And so God is explaining cool things about nature to Job in an effort to kind of put Job in his place and realize, I am great. God is great. We are people. And when we reflect on God's creation, God's nature, even the universe, we can kind of learn some stuff about it. And God was trying to teach Job some stuff through his creation. So that kind of came up in my mind this week. I'm like, wow, that's really, really, really cool. All right. We looked at the Big Bang, right? Number one was the Big Bang, the universe beginning. I don't even like to call it the Big Bang, but scientists call it the Big Bang. And you know what? I don't even argue with people. If I'm talking to somebody that doesn't believe in God and they're like, oh, it got created, the universe started with the Big Bang. I don't want to argue about the term Big Bang. I usually say, oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, how'd the Big Bang happen? And just go there. We got to pick our battles. I don't like the term Big Bang because it implies like atheism, sort of. That's the atheists have kind of hijacked it. But that's okay. I don't really want to argue about the term. Okay, God spoke and there was a Big Bang. Maybe. All right, so I'm not going to argue about Big Bang, but I am going to say, what started the Big Bang? Do you really believe nothing exploded and formed everything? Okay, so that's the first thing we talked about last week. We also looked at the universe is fine-tuned for life to exist. Basically, the universe is rigged. There's all kinds of things, from the size of a proton, the charge of a proton, the size of an electron, all these kinds of things that you're going to learn more about if you take more science classes, okay? Or you've already learned about them. But it's amazing how perfectly tuned, how the universe is rigged for life. All right, that's where we left off last week. And I told you, a kind of little cliffhanger, I said my favorite is today, okay? the fine tuning, it's kind of hard. Like protons, I've never even seen a proton. I mean, how do we explain? It's harder to grasp. Now, it's not like I've seen DNA, but it's easier. This is easier to understand because we're going to look at today the information found in DNA. What's DNA? Okay, guys, we're allowed to talk. This is my students at class, right? I ask them a question. Does anybody know? Anybody ever heard of DNA? Yeah.
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Yeah, Drew. Woo! Homeschool boy.
That's it. Yes. That's what DNA stands for. Wow. Could I have? You're right, but I don't know if I would have known that off the top of my head like that. Okay, that's good. That's good. All right. What else have you heard about DNA?
Zootopia.
Zootopia. Homeschool? No, not public school. You go to North Point, right? Okay, that's Christian school. Yeah. Same. All right.
Yeah, we watch movies all day.
Now, I don't remember Zootopia. I have seen it like 4 times, I think, but.
No.
Okay.
Like the predators are like, it's in their DNA that they're bad.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay, I remember that now. Okay, what else do we know about DNA?
It holds the information.
It's like who you are, holds the information.
Oh, yeah.
It's us. It's your programming. Yeah. Awesome. Those are all correct. Okay, good. See, what that means is when I first asked the question, what is DNA? And everybody sat there quietly, you all knew the answers, or a lot of you did, and you were still quiet. That's terrible. No, okay. All right. So, all right. DNA has what we call coded information in it. Okay. Now, we need to define what is information. Most people don't think about that because information is a word like, duh, we know what information is, right? But like, how would you define information for simple folk? Okay, for people that don't know what information is, okay, like what is it? Like stuff to know. Okay, that's true. It's stuff to know. Maybe it's like a communication from one person to another. Information. I don't know if you've thought about it, but information has 3 characteristics. Number 1 is high improbability. So, for example, think of information. Maybe a page in a book is information, right? The stuff written is information. But if you just like jumble up a whole bunch of letters and throw them on the floor, what are the chances that you're going to get information, that you're going to get a word or a paragraph or a page? Slim to none. So, high improbability. Information is very unlikely. Another thing about it is it has a discernible functional pattern. What in the world is that? Well, a pattern, we know what a pattern is, right? My shirt is a pattern, right? It's like a repeating pattern. Okay. The carpet even, there's patterns to it. Okay. So we know what a pattern is. Functional, if something's functional, that means it does a function. It like has a purpose. And discernible, we discern it. We can tell what it's doing. So you see a word and you discern, it functions, it tells you something, and there's a pattern there. Okay. And then third, it always comes from an intelligent source, a mind. I would challenge you, try to think of information that didn't come from a mind. It's like a self-evident truth. If there's information, it came from an intelligent source. Okay? If there's a book, we don't go, wow, random chance made that. No, we're like, okay, that came from an author. If we hear music and it like is played right, we say, there's an intelligent source there. That's information too. If we see a computer program, there's a programmer. You see what I'm saying? Right? Information always comes from an intelligent source. Now remember that. That's huge. Here we go. We're walking on the beach. There's seashells and rocks and things like that. We're walking along the beach, and suddenly we come to that.
That's
Right.
some smart waves.
Okay. Now, usually, if you see this, what do you conclude? Someone made it. Okay? Is this a pattern? Yeah.
Usually I think the fish did it.
The fish did it. Good. Right? But is it a pattern? Yes. Does it function as something? Yeah. And is it recognizable? Yeah. And can you even determine invisible qualities about the person or that made this? You probably like, they're in love, right? Even though you've never seen them, you can go, that person is in love, right? Even an invisible quality about that person can be seen from what they made. Huh. Almost sounds like Romans chapter 1. Okay? Almost sounds like Romans chapter 1. Even invisible characteristics about God can be discerned from things he's made. We do that all the time. We look at this and we go, this came from an intelligent source, maybe a very intelligent fish, for example. Okay, no. All right, but it came from an intelligent source. Nobody says, wow, the waves just dropped the rocks in a heart shape. That's cool. Nobody does that. You're hiking and you come upon this mountain. This has first of all, high improbability. Secondly, discernible functional pattern. So we conclude this came from, this is erosion at its best right here. Right?
I'm surprised I even knew what
Erosion. Okay? Well, right? Nobody does that. I mean, I guess no. Some people do that. Okay, but they don't do that seriously. They never say erosion without, they're joking, I think, right? Good. Okay. I hope they're joking. All right, so we see these examples of information and we infer intelligent source. All right. Here's a cell. And in the cell we have a nucleus. And in the nucleus we have chromosomes. And if you unravel the chromosomes, you get DNA. And a portion of DNA is called a gene. Okay? I forget. I once knew this, but I forget. I think we might have a mile of DNA in us or something. I don't know how long. But anyway, there's information encoded in there. Okay? What DNA does, it is a code. A digital code, actually. It's digital. You know computers? Ones and zeros, right? Ones and zeros. It's called binary code. Have you guys heard of binary code before? Ones and zeros? Ones and zeros? Guess what? DNA is 4, not just 2. 4. You know who that guy is? Bill Gates. Bill Gates started Microsoft. So Windows, Xbox, things like that. Bill Gates. If there's anybody on the planet that knows a little bit about software programs, probably Bill Gates. Here's a quote about DNA. DNA is like a computer program, but far, far more advanced than any software ever created. Bill Gates said that in his book called The Road Ahead. Okay. Now, software, computer programs. If you have a program, that's an information. Where'd that come from? A programmer. What is the intelligent, logical source for information encoded in DNA? A very intelligent designer, programmer. Or you have to say, the only example of information in the entire universe that comes from randomness and not intelligence is DNA. That's like saying the heart shape was actually just random. Mount Rushmore was actually erosion. And that's all DNA is too. It is about that ludicrous, by the way. something more complex than a computer program not coming from intelligence is as ridiculous as Mount Rushmore being erosion. Okay, it really, truly is. So we are forced. I said last week when I left you with a cliffhanger, I said, it is as if each one of us is carrying around God's signature in every one of our cells. When an artist makes an awesome painting, he or she usually signs it in the corner. And so there's a great book written. I mean, this book is called Signature in the Cell by Dr. Stephen C. Meyer from, he's a Cambridge-educated scientist, but he wrote a book, Signature in the Cell, about how every cell has God's signature right on it because of the DNA information, okay? It's really indisputable. So you remember that. DNA has the codes for building life, for building proteins, okay? Your cells have to build the proteins that go in fingernails and skin and hair. Okay, hair, yeah, good, thank you. Good save, all right. The proteins that build your bones, everything. The proteins that build you have to get built by factories. Your cell's like a factory. And if you could zoom in and see it. See, Darwin thought a cell looked like this. That's it. Charles Darwin, the inventor of evolution or whatever, right? He couldn't even see the chromosomes or anything. He said he saw a cell and blob called nucleus. That's it. He was ignorant of the other facts of life. Okay, we've got information there, we've got information there, and we've got information there. Intelligent source that's where it's from. Okay. So we have three things. The universe had a beginning. The universe is fine-tuned for life, and there's encoded information in DNA that demands an intelligent source. But there's more. Okay? I mentioned Charles Darwin. The fourth thing is many biological structures are irreducibly complex. I'll explain what that means in a minute. Okay. All right, let's see. I have a mouse trap.
Throw it at someone.
Tom and Jerry.
Now, Kylie, did you say yikes? Or somebody say yikes? Who said yikes? Okay. Why did you say yikes?
Because they go.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, this is now set. How does a mouse trap work?
The mouse eats the cheese.
Yeah. This yellow thing right here is where if the mouse touches that, there's a spring, right?
I hate those things.
Yeah.
You're going to break your pen.
All right. There's a spring right here.
And they're loud.
And so if the mouse touches it,
Told you.
Oh, well, he's dead.
it broke my pen.
That pen cap was its head.
Look at that. Okay. Yeah, that's why I was like, all right, so
That's your finger.
So it's like this is spring loaded. There's a spring and it snaps, right? And this bar kept it in place, all right? So this is not a super complex device, right?
The sticky traps are the worst. You could see the mouse moving.
Okay.
Well,
That's also not.
you see a mouse in a mouse trap, it's not good. Okay, but at any rate, it's see that pen kit? Yeah, the pen, the mouse. Anyway, okay. Sorry. You don't have ink all over. You have, never mind. Okay, so at any rate, now let's talk about, do you guys know about the theory of evolution? The theory of evolution is that Charles Darwin proposed it. He saw, for example, he went to the Galapagos Islands, and he saw birds, and some of the birds had different shaped beaks. And he's like, different shaped beaks. And he concluded, he said, you know what? I think if birds can change beaks, then birds can change into fish, or reptiles can change into birds, or, he went on and on with this idea that we call evolution of the species that doesn't really make any sense to me. But let me show you the evolution of a mousetrap. Okay? Go with me for a minute. Okay? I'm teaching what evolution teaches in church. Sorry. Okay, so let's imagine that a piece of wood was born. Okay, this type of piece of wood right here it likes to eat mice. And maybe it randomly happens to fall on top of a mouse and gets to eat. And so, it's not a very good mouse eater, but it can eat mice. But then one day this piece of wood has baby woods. Go with me, all right? Has baby woods, right? And some of the babies are born with like a little tail, right? A little tail. Now, what Darwin taught is that if an organism is born with a mutation, so the DNA gets broken, and then actually, the DNA built this. That's interesting. But if this is helpful, then this will be a better mouse eater. So this can't even move by itself. It just hangs there. So there's no reason to think that this will help the wood eat mice better. Okay? But so Darwin would say, this is actually not helpful, and so evolution will not keep it, and it'll just go back to being wood in the next generation. But we're going to break the laws of evolution. We're going to say, you know what, who cares? Let's just say that this survives and has baby wood tail things. Okay? And some of the babies are born with a little yellow thing on there. No, not cheese, just something to hold the cheese. So now some of the babies have this now. I don't know. So now Darwin says, if this is helpful at eating mice, then this will be preserved by evolution. It's called natural selection. And this will survive and have babies that have this too. Evolution looks at this and goes, no, this isn't helpful. So Darwin would say, no, it's not helpful. But you know what? Let's just say that we'll break the laws of evolution and say, you know what? Let's just say that these did survive and they had babies. And some of the babies have this. Here. There's no spring, but it's just kind of, here's the wood thing. Again, is this an advantage for eating mice? No. In fact, if this thing had to swim, this is heavier now. It's going to slow it down. So it's actually going to help it survive worse. A mousetrap needs to have all the parts at the same time. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Can a mousetrap evolve gradually? No. The 5 steps for something to evolve, according to Darwin, every step has to be an advantage. But a mousetrap, you don't have the advantage until you have all of them, all the 5 parts together at once. Do you see what's going on there? Does that make sense? So a mousetrap is an example. We call this irreducible complexity. Irreducible. You can't reduce it. You can't simplify it to below 5 parts. Okay? So evolution can't build something like this. Does that make sense? Now, do we know who that is? That's Charles Darwin. He's the guy that wrote the book on the origin of species in 1859. 1859. Okay? Here's what he said. Read this quote. This is Charles Darwin. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous, successive, slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down, but I can find no such case. So he couldn't think of one. But a mousetrap is one of them. We'll get to real ones in a minute. But my mousetrap organism, numerous successive slight modifications, Darwin's theory cannot build that. So we have to ask ourselves, now that we have better microscopes and electron microscopes, that Darwin did not have electron microscopes, can we examine the structures of biology? Are there any structures that are like the mousetrap? It turns out the answer is most of them. Okay, yes. The answer is there's a ton. There's a ton. All right. Here's a slight modification, right? Here's a bacteria. And here's a bacteria with a tail. The flagellum. Yeah, but this tail can move. So this provides an advantage, okay? Because this tail, like, it's a flagellum, and it flaps around, and this guy can, so this guy can go cruise to the food faster than these guys. So this is an example, okay? Darwin would say, like if I was Darwin, I would say, hey, if some of these bacteria are born with flagellum that help it swim better, then in the future generations, this will be preserved, and that will be evolution. That's what Darwin would say. But now, let's look at, using our scanning tunneling microscopes, let's look at the flagellum more closely. This is the flagellum. So this is the tail, and this is where it attaches to the bacteria. There are 42 separate structures that compose what's a motor in here, with 42 pieces, all integrated and running together. This mousetrap had 5 pieces, I think, 5 or 6. This has 42. And without all 42 there, it's as useless as this thing. Okay. It's got to have all 42. One with 36 of the 42, and it's dead weight. This thing can't find any food, and it dies. See, evolution can't even build a tail for the bacteria that's helpful. Do you guys understand? Is that making sense? Okay. So, as Darwin said, if it could be demonstrated that there's any complex organ that couldn't be formed by successive slight modifications, my theory would break down. This is why the more biology has learned, seriously, in the last 50 years, the more scientists, more and more, not all of them, but more and more are starting to go, uh-oh, we're kind of in trouble here. And really are. We can't explain a lot. Okay? Scientists can't. Other examples, blood clotting. For your blood to clot, you need 20 proteins present all at the same time. So if we evolved, and at one step in our evolution we only had like 16 of the proteins, our blood wouldn't clot. We'd like bleed out every paper cut we got. Okay, so we'd be in real trouble. Blood clotting, evolution can't make it because 20 things are needed at the same time. Eyesight, okay. Now, eyesight requires tons of machinery, but even the simplest, there are like some fish that live like deep down under, and they only can tell light or dark. They can't like see you, or they can't tell colors or anything like that, but they can they have cells that can interpret light, but those cells also have to have a nervous system to interpret the signals. It has to all be there, or there's no point. Okay, so there's so many things like that. I just wanted to give you a few. It's called irreducibly complex. It can't be built by slight steps. Okay? So, we have the universe had a beginning. It is not eternal. Something had to start it. We have the universe is fine-tuned for life to exist. We have encoded information in DNA, and information always comes from intelligence. And we have biological structures that are irreducibly complex. So scientists need something other than evolution, something other than more than a Big Bang. They got to explain it, where it came from. Whew. Those are my 4 scientific things. This last one kind of helps you shoot a hole in evolution a little bit and some of the theory. DNA demands an intelligent source. So we're not just like guessing. There must be a God. No. There has to be a great intelligence. Okay? All right. You guys got any questions or comments? I stopped early this time. Yeah. So we have questions and comments time. You guys have any questions at all? There's more that I could say, but yeah.
Can we watch some more of your YouTube videos?
Yeah.
Welcome to the vlog.
Yeah.
It's me.
Do you believe that there's, like, in the last 100 years, that things can evolve, animals can?
Like adaptation.
Well, yes, absolutely. God made us that way. Okay.
For the Homo sapiens, with like, well, people who are born in colder climates or warmer climates have different.
For sure, yeah. God made us very adaptable and very adaptable. So, for example, if you get sick with a chicken pox or something, your body adjusts, and guess what? You're not going to get chicken pox again. That's like really cool. You have evolved to a non-chicken pox getter. Okay? When I was, yeah, that's the official name. No, but when I was little, when I was like 7 or 8, I would go to the doctor for everything. Well, my parents would take me. Don't tell my parents. Okay, but they would take me to the doctor, right? And they wouldn't really take me for everything, but the doctor would prescribe antibiotics frequently back in the day. Oh, you have a cold? Here, antibiotics. Here, antibiotics. Now doctors don't like to give you antibiotics unless you really need them. Why?
Because then you get like the other stuff that like doesn't like do the antibiotic, and then your body like doesn't do anything.
Yes. If there's antibiotics out there, some bacteria survive the antibacterial or the antibiotic assault, and those bacteria are extra strong, and antibiotics won't work against them. That's an example of quote unquote evolution. And how does that evolve? We even know how that evolution works, by the way. How does a microorganism become immune to antibiotics or a drug? Do you know how it does? Some of the children, bad germs, okay? Some of the baby germs are born with something wrong with their stomachs. Not that they don't have stomachs, but something wrong with their digestive systems. They're mutants. Some of the germs can't eat the antibiotics, and so they survive. But it's important to understand that those are actually, those ones that survive, they beat the antibiotics, but they're actually less good than the originals because they're broken in some ways. They can only digest some foods, but not the whole. So yes, that has evolved. It became a superbug. But in almost all circumstances, we can analyze the DNA and we see, oh, they're broken, and that's how they survived. So again, the evolution, and Wayne, that's a great question, the evolution that happens, it's not producing superior organisms, okay? But things like that do happen. It's called microevolution. So I think an intelligent way to approach it it would not be very good, like just if you ever find yourself in a discussion with somebody, to just say, oh, evolution isn't real. It would be better to say, you know what? Let's talk about what evolution can do and what it can't do. It can't build irreducibly complex structures, but can some bacteria become immune? Sure, it can do that. It's not going to change a primate into a human, that's for sure. But it can, do some other things. See, and that's just a little bit more of an intelligent way to handle conversations like that. Nora, did you have a question?
Yeah. So in biology, they showed us these diagrams of like some type of whale or something that had like bones that had been like pushed off to the like side of the animal. They weren't used anymore, and they used that to like show us that like animals and stuff like change in evolution. Like, do you think that that big of a change is possible, or like how do you explain that big of a change with bones? Just like,
I don't know about the whale.
Is it like the bones that would have been used as the legs?
Yeah,
Is that
the
what you're trying to
whale
say?
pelvis, right?
something
What?
that they would have needed if they
Okay, they're called, I think, vestigial organs or vestigial bones or whatever like that. I think a better way of looking at that is, or one way of looking at that would be the scientists can't figure out what they're used for. Now, I don't know how much time they've spent swimming around with this whale, and but I would say, okay, just because the scientists can't figure out a reason doesn't necessarily mean there isn't one. So, for example, when I was little, they used to take kids' tonsils out a lot. I got my tonsils removed. Most of the kids in my school, when you're in like first or second grade, you got your tonsils out. Why? Because they're not really needed. How many of you guys, does anybody have their tonsils here? Does anybody still have theirs? Okay. Whoa! Now, if I were your age, rewind, not that long ago. Okay, but if you rewind a little bit, almost nobody would raise their hand. Seriously. Why do you guys all have your tonsils? Doctors have learned. Oh, they actually help a little bit with the immunity system. What's that called? Immune system. Sorry, I made it too. So that's an example of science changing because, and then there's the appendix too. The appendix, now they realize, you know what, that actually helps fight infections. Tailbone, oh my goodness, that is so improperly named. It's named because, well, we used to have tails. No. And now it doesn't do anything. But it actually does. It helps with balance and all kinds of things with sitting. So maybe, and I don't know anything about those whales, but I'm just saying maybe instead of just hypothesizing, this is when the whale used to be a lizard. Huh. Instead of just doing that, maybe we go, this thing lives like 1,000 feet underwater. maybe we just don't know enough about him yet. And that's probably a better way to go.
Kind of like how we were talking with Pastor Nick about like different like people, different races.
Yeah.
But like can we not like become like Asian and stuff? We want to. Like how are we like all like different?
Now, yeah. I don't know, but there is a lot of genetics is really cool. I mean, you even look at kids in the same family, you see similarities, but are they all identical? No, they're not identical. If you have a brother or a sister, some people might say you look alike, but you're like, we do not look alike. Okay, so, and that's just one generation. So go 10, 20 generations, and I think a lot of changes are possible. How much changes? I don't know. But, I think a lot of cool stuff happened at the Tower of Babel when God separated the people. None of us were there. We don't have all the details, but I think some pretty amazing things happened at the Tower of Babel. But certainly changes happen. Populations can become taller. They can become shorter, but they're not going to become giraffes. Okay. All right, other questions? You guys are asking good questions. Because these are all, and by the way, in the fossil record, fossils are like buried animals that have died and they become rock, basically. There are not very many transitional organisms. In fact, there's very few. What a transitional organism would be, show me the whale show me the fish with legs. Like, where is it? And look around right now on planet Earth. Where are the intermediate, the ones that are in the middle of evolution? Like, where are they? Where are the fish birds or the fish lizards or whatever they say? Where are they at? Yeah, some died off, but isn't evolution constantly happening according to them? Like, isn't it like going all the time? Like, where are they? They're not there. All right. Well, I guess we've come to the end of the day. And that, if you guys come up with more scientific questions, especially stuff you've heard at school, we can talk about it in the future. But next week, Lord willing, we're going to move into the Bible. How do we get it? And why is it reliable? Because it's super reliable. And I'm really excited to talk about prophecies that have been fulfilled and awesome things about the Bible. All right?